Good afternoon, world. It's moments past noon in Waxahachie, Texas, deep in the heart of the Lone Star State. October 29th, and this is the 13th episode of the Grit and Good News Show. We're broadcasting live from our, shall we say, palatial studio, second-story studio, here in downtown Waxahachie, in the shadows of the historic Ellis County Courthouse. I'm your co-host, Jeff Lynch, and it gives me great pride, pleasure, and honor to introduce to you my friend, your host, Scott Brooks.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome everyone to what is 2 days. It's Halloween Eve,
Yes,
right?
All Hallows Ween.
Yes, it's amazing that we're already at the end of October. You know what that means is that on Friday I start listening to Christmas music.
And I've asked you this too many times. I'm afraid of the answer. You got any pumpkins?
No, not yet.
You
No,
are
that's
killing
my
me.
wife's department. I've never bought a pumpkin in my life, or as you say, a pumpkin. I never bought a pumpkin in my life. But anyway, thank you for being with us. Great and good news, Jeff and
Sonia,
Scott.
get on the stick.
We're happy that you are here. We're happy to be here. We got a lot to talk about today. There's a lot going on in our country, a lot going on in our city, actually, and there's certainly going on a lot going on in our world. But we are happy that you are here. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday from noon until 1 o'clock on Instagram. Hello, Instagram friends, and then on Facebook, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. So right now with TikTok, we're going to be taking segments of our show, putting it there,
Nice.
because we're not at a point where we can go live yet on TikTok, but we're getting there.
And as you're speaking of live, if you don't see it live, you can come back and
Right.
see it on Instagram, YouTube, and on Waxahachie Sun Facebook page. And many people have YouTube on their TV. Whenever I like to go back and watch the show and critique myself, the best way to do it is on TV. You got a pretty good sized screen, and
it's fun to do that.
It's almost like watching TV.
Yeah, it is. And I would say that our show is off to a great start. We have several hundred, sometimes over 1,000 viewers of our show, which we're very pleased with. And that's really after we haven't done much marketing or promoting. We will do more as time goes on. Of course, we're securing sponsors. So we're very pleased about the progress of our show.
And so much of that viewership comes from people who are coming back and looking at it. We'll look at our viewership after the show finishes, and then we'll look back, a few days later, and it grows exponentially.
That's right. So today, one of the things we want to talk about is I'm going to set it up and kind of let Jeff take over. But I'm amazed, and I'm guilty of it sometimes, but I try not to be. But I'm amazed at how often we hear a word thrown around as a label or a criticism or an accusation, or we hear a phrase that people use, and rarely do we ever stop and say, do I know what I'm saying? Do I really know what I'm saying? Or do the people that we constantly hear saying things like a threat to democracy? Well, what is a threat to democracy? If a threat to democracy is a man who spent 4 years in office and promoted democracy in our country, then I don't know. I don't know what that means. On the other hand, if you say, well, we have a party in place that elected somebody to be its presidential candidate without ever having a vote, I would say that's kind of a threat to democracy. But the point is, we hear all these words, we hear all these labels thrown around, and I don't think most of the time people even know what they're saying. One of those words, one of those labels is, you're a communist, you're a fascist, you're this and all that. We hear it constantly. We hear and we're going to talk about the rally the other night at Madison Square Garden on Sunday. We see the comparisons of, well, that's nothing but like what Hitler did in 1939. It's communism and it's Nazism and all that nonsense. So Jeff's going to share a little bit about communism and what we're actually talking about here. So go for it.
And I did a poem the other day about playing in heaven, about the greatness of Jerry Jeff Walker, Charlie Daniels, and John Prine all died in the same year. And I wrote a poem about that. And the opening line of that poem is a lead off really to this also. And it goes like this: off to college in 73, gonna climb the learning tree, fake my way to a 2.7 GPA, and was exposed to, in this case, music I still love today, but into thoughts that I still love today. I'm going to tell you, my 2.7 GPA could have been lower if it was not for the greatness of Brother Richard Gerlach. I went to a small college in Minnesota, private school, St. Mary's College, now St. Mary's University.
Yeah.
And the Christian Brothers are a great, loving, and teaching order of men. And Brother Richard Gerlach was he was a gentle giant. He was probably about 6'4" and built as solid as could be. Looked like he could play linebacker or tight end, but he was a gentle man. And the first history class I took was Imperial Russia from him, and I really grooved on it. And so I took Soviet Russia afterwards, and
Mhm.
I ended up liking him so much that 4 of the 5 courses I took to get my history major were from him. And I asked this to Scott, I ask this to people often. Is there any one thing you ever heard in high school, grade school, high school, or college that you've never forgotten? And there's only one. And I'm telling you, I've recited this to so many people over the years. And he was talking about communism. And he said, communism in its purest form, as intended by Karl Marx, give of your ability and take of your need, is the most beautiful concept on earth, spoiled by human selfishness.
Mm.
Communism in its purest form, give of your ability and take of your need, spoiled by human selfishness. Guess what? That kind of is what happened with Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
The selfishness. Here's the story. Karl Marx was a German philosopher. In 1840, he fled Prussia to go to England because he was in heat with the czars for the books he was writing about communism. And in it, he said that communism is an ideology that advocates the classless society where all property and wealth are communally owned. Now, remember the hippie movement
Mhm.
in the 60s, and they lived in communes? Remember George Jones and all those people that were massacred? Communes are great if you can adhere by giving of your abilities and taking of your needs.
Mhm.
But it is indeed spoiled by human selfishness. I'm a big hockey guy, and I can remember before the Miracle on Ice, watching some Russian teams come over and play in Minnesota before 1980, and they came over in their red uniforms with mismatched gloves, mismatched helmets,
Yeah.
but they played as a unit. They
Mhm.
played as a collective where the individual didn't matter. It was all about the group. And they pass and pass and pass and pass. And you would be shamed if you took any shot short of a tap in because the guy had gotten you to where you just had to shoot.
Mhm.
Okay. And that was their failure against the United States in the Miracle on Ice because they couldn't break into individualism, and the
Mhm.
U.S. was onto the way they were playing, and they stifled them. But I'm telling you, communism is a beautiful idea, but it's impractical in today's world. And in today's world, really, the only truly communist nations that are left are China, Cuba, Laos, North Vietnam, and North Korea. And the old Soviet Union, the USSR, Union of Soviet Socialists, and socialist is kind of another term for communism light, basically,
Mhm.
republic. And that all ended when our man Ronald Reagan said to Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall.
Right.
And all of those, 11 Soviet socialist states dissolved, and
Mhm.
different ones have different degrees of democracy. And you see that Russia is not on the list of current communist countries because um, they have introduced a fair amount of um, not democracy, but private ownership
Yeah,
in it,
capitalism.
capitalism.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so
take it from there.
yeah, so the idea what we hear today when let me ask you this. So when you hear the left call Trump a communist or a fascist, um, wanting to be a dictator, all that sort of thing. What when they say communist, what do you think they're calling him?
I don't know, because to me, the communist is the left wing trying to just give things away all the
Yes.
time.
So the you're right about some wonderful concepts in the world and life, in our own individual lives, can turn on a dime because of greed and selfishness and the insatiable thirst for power.
Right.
So when you think about the communist countries you just mentioned, if we were to ever, I had some friends when I worked at a paper years ago that went over to Cuba,
Cuba.
and really witnessed firsthand what it means to live in a communist country. And it is third world is not really sufficient, because when we think of third world, we think of, or I do, Ethiopia and Nigeria and those countries like that. But when you think of Cuba, Cuba is stuck way back when. They don't have things that we had decades ago and have surpassed and stopped using. I mean, it is a system under which Fidel Castro said, I'm going to run this place. If there's going to be anything given or shared, I'm going to be the one to give it
That
and share.
that communal ownership is owned by the government. That's
Yes,
the whole deal.
and so when we hear the left, particularly in America, call anyone on the right a communist, what they're actually saying is that or fascist. Fascist is another word for dictatorship.
Right.
Trump is going to be a dictator. He's going to be a fascist. He's going to take everything that we all have and then either grab it, kill it, hold on to it, and then disperse it as he sees fit.
And who's the biggest capitalist in the cotton picking world?
Yeah, so
I mean,
that's another example of somebody saying he's going to be a fascist. Well, we had 4 years of Donald Trump, and I don't remember any fascist
no,
activity
no,
or communist activity. So
no.
and we got a couple of folks that commented. Terry, great for you to be with us. We always love seeing you. Sleestack Council. Um, I'm not sure I know how to say that first word, but political theory derived from Karl Marx, advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned and each person works and is paid according to this ability and needs. See also um, Marxism, or if you're a conservative, any policy that you don't like or agree with. Typically, programs designed to help groups of people whose skin color you find scary and call the HOA about. See also woke. Hello, Jonna. Thank you for that, Sleestack Council. The issue for me is, let's call people out. I mean, it can be people on the right who say things about those on the left or anyone, but if somebody says you're a communist, well, it's no different than I mean, we know what a racist is, but when somebody calls me a racist, which happens often from people on the left who disagree with me, they're going to really have a reason to tomorrow. But I'm like, you don't even know what you're talking about. You don't know what
Yeah.
you're calling me. You don't, in the essence of the word.
And think about a good marriage.
Yeah,
Okay. Do you give of your abilities and take of your needs?
yeah,
Okay, we have different abilities
right.
and different, so we have different people in the marriage doing different things. And guess what? It's great unless it's spoiled by
Yeah, so
selfishness,
when
right?
you have a balance, the best relationships, best
You
marriages,
know,
best businesses
yeah.
run uh, because the person running it is willing to say, in my opinion, we all have talents. Let's support one another. We're going to help you, but you do your thing. We'll all be a commune, if you will, and work together. That's teams operate that way. I used to say years ago,
Right.
and Sammy, my son, has heard me say it before, but that dude has the Allen Iverson effect, or that dude has the Terrell Owens effect, or that dude has some other idiot athlete who only cares about themselves. Allen Iverson was a great basketball player for the Philadelphia 76ers, but you know what he never did? He never won a championship. And you know why he never won a championship, in my opinion? Is because he was out for Allen Iverson. So the team, James Harden, has he won a championship? He's not won a championship, and he's bounced around everywhere. And those teams that get him, their little secret, they don't even stop to think about it, is this guy's not been an asset anywhere he's gone. He might score 100 points, but we're a worse team.
Yeah, it's the
And so
guy
they
that can
keep,
dish the ball, right?
yeah. So we're just, yeah, it's the guy who can feed others to
Yeah,
score.
exactly.
So, so the message of this segment is to say, look, the names we call people, let's understand what it is we're saying before we just start blabbering at the mouth. If you want to call me or anybody else a racist, then tell me how I'm being racist. I mean, not just me, but others. If Trump is a fascist or a communist or a dictator, then point to examples where he has proven to empirically proven to be that way. You know, Debbie Stabenow, who's an idiot senator or congresswoman from Michigan, has the audacity, and we're going to talk about it in just a second, to say that Trump is going to create internment camps in America, like like we're back in the 30s with Nazis and all that stuff. It's insanity, and yet the media just parrots it like they don't have any sense, which they don't. But no one's called out for it. When we hear the term "he's a threat to democracy," well, what do you mean he's a threat to democracy? And you know we've already mentioned that, but anyway, the idea of this show, we want to say, okay, well, we hear these things, we observe these things, and what is actually going on here? And with communism, if somebody is a modern day communist, because communism, despite its origin, uh, has become a tool for those who want power and to dominate others, intimidate others. It's become a very bad thing. We should understand what it is we're talking about.
Yeah, and that list of communist countries now, how big would that have been before? Well, before the wall went down,
Yeah,
and the shattering of the Soviet Union is what led to the demise of
right.
communism. You know,
Yeah, in that part of in that country's for
yeah,
sure. Um, but what's interesting, and I'll shut up, is that what will it ever take for? Will it take the Castro bloodline finally dying off before Cuba? My hope for people in Cuba and North Korea. I mean, North Korea, you look at that city; it's got beautiful
but guess
buildings, and
what? It's a young leader there.
it is a young leader, and those people are told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. It's an awful existence,
Yeah,
which is why they won't let anybody in to observe it. So,
and
uh,
and the contrast between North Korea, South Korea,
yeah,
North Vietnam, and South
yeah.
Vietnam,
I
it's
mean,
just incredible.
there's a line that separates them, and yet that line signifies and it's the opposite, polar opposites. You
Yeah,
know, it's an
entirely.
amazing thing. We are happy to share with you that one of our sponsors is Cancun's Tex-Mex restaurant up on 77, just about 2.5 miles north of 287. It actually may not be that far, but it's a wonderful restaurant, one of our favorites in my family. Cancun's is in front of Atwoods. If you're going north, it's on the west side of the street. If you're coming south, it's on the east side of the street. And a wonderful restaurant, relatively still new building. They were in another place for a long time. They make great food, great service, a very popular place. So for those of you new to Waxahachie, new to our show, check out Cancun's right now. If you go to the Down Home app, which if you need it, go to Google, go to Apple, and just search Down Home. You'll find it. Down Home is the app for all of Waxahachie. In that app is a coupon section, and in that coupon section is a great coupon from Cancun's. You spend $20 at Cancun's, and up until November the 5th, which is Election Day next Tuesday, you get a free order of sopapillas. So Cancun's, that's the place to eat breakfast, dinner, lunch. We love it, and they have a nice bar setting. You will like it too. So thank you, Cancun's. All right, it's in the past 2 or 3 weeks. I guess no, going back to whenever that debate was that David Muir and his sidekick had with Harris and Trump, and the fact checking was going on. Uh, Donald Trump said that in America, crime stats are going through the roof. That was his quote. David Muir fact checked Donald Trump on the fly and said, no, crime statistics, crime uh, overall is going down in America. Then we fast forward about 2 weeks, and the FBI, under the cover of darkness, I might add, puts out its report about crime, actual stats on crime in America. And lo and behold, crime is up in this great country, and
especially in big
yeah,
cities,
big
which were
cities.
the
Yeah,
ones.
which is what I believe in all his snaky, slithery ways. David Muir was trying to say, no, crime is not up. And if you don't look at the big cities, crime isn't up. If you
Right,
take away New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, of all war torn places,
right.
uh, San Francisco, you name it. Uh, if you take those out of the picture, then yeah, crime's down.
Where it's
But
gone from worse to worser.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, so David Muir was
Worser.
saying, no, it's down. What he wasn't telling the truth, first of all, but what he wasn't divulging is that he wasn't counting the big cities. Trump was. And lo and behold, as I just mentioned, the FBI comes out 2 or 3 weeks later and says, here's the report, actual report. And let me just read for you a couple things here about that report. Um, to give an idea of the size of the change, when the 2022 data, which 2022 and 2023 is what Muir, Trump, and everybody's talking about because that's how the crime statistics, that's what's out. That's the most recent. When 22 came out in September 2023, they initially reported that violent crime had fallen by 2.1% in 2022. This type size is about bigger than ant. That's the final data, supposedly for 2022.
Put your granny readers on,
No,
dude.
they make it worse. The revision of that final data, the final data that came out last month, now claims that rather than 2.1% drop, that there was actually a 4.5% increase in violent crime that occurred in 2022. That's a 6.6% point change. Uh,
Figures lie, liars figure.
according, that's right, according to the FBI. Now, there are going to be people who hear this. I know there are going to be people who hear this. There are going to be people, if I write about it, they're going to say, crime went down, crime went down. I swear they're the same people who could watch somebody, God forbid, be shot in the nose right in front of them and say that didn't happen, or that wasn't malicious, that wasn't crime. In this case, Donald Trump in the debate said crime is through the roof. Now, through the roof is a relative term, but he said it. And CBS, via its snake in chief, David Muir, said it's not up, it's down. And so we're here to say this is not our report. This is not something we went to the metadata and the black web or dark web, whatever they call it, and found. This is straight from the FBI that stats are now showing a 4.5% increase in violent crime in America. Here's a quote. Let's see. I'll just read the whole thing. It's from a drop to an increase. And the bizarre thing to me, for a year after the 2022 data was put out, we were having headlines, news articles after news articles saying violent crime is falling, people mistakenly or erroneously believing that it's increasing. And they were relying on this data, but you don't see any corrections in the news saying, oops, we made a mistake. Well, that's Donald Trump saying that. You don't see that. This report is on Fox. It's been on other places, but this is from Fox. I doubt that it was headline news on any of the other places, particularly CBS. Biden said this year the homicide and violent crime rates have continued their rapid decline from their peaks during the last administration. Biden said in an official White House statement late last month. Communities across our country are safer now than when I took office. I call BS on Biden, and I'm sick of it. The, he doesn't live in Chicago. He doesn't live in San Francisco. He doesn't live in L.A. or New York, and yet here he is, just blatantly lying to us.
But the man that pulls his puppet strings lives in Chicago.
Well, yeah, Obama knows better. And here we're just being directly every time I start thinking about how much more lying can the media do, expecting us to just slop it up like we don't have any sense, and at least half the country does. How much more can happen? How much more lying can take place, particularly when it comes to crime stats? Crime is an important aspect of life, right? I don't
Right.
want to live where there's crime.
Right.
I saw somebody post something locally. They were at Getzendanner Park. Uh, just either last night or the night before, or not at night. It was during the day. They went walking and came back, and their windows were shattered and purses taken. Purses that were tucked underneath their seats were taken. And in Waxahachie, we had a great police department, great police chief. Those Our crime is in hand and controlled here, but those are examples or little indications that we gotta be serious about it. The White House also said, uh, following the passage of the American Rescue Plan in 2021, under the Biden administration, violent crime is at a near 50-year low. And all the while, the White House's and this administration's own FBI is telling us the truth, and that crime is up. And for me, violent crime being up 4.5% is through the roof. I mean, I don't. 1% is too much. Any thoughts on all that?
Well, I've got some thoughts about a little bit about some of the cause. We could talk forever about immigration and its effect. We could beat that to death, but there's been no doubt that immigration has been an effect. Uh, but I was thinking about the whole defund the police movement, and that
Mhm.
all came after the George Floyd incident in
Right,
Minneapolis.
right.
And I'm thinking to myself, you know, the problem isn't having police departments. The problem is the few bad apples. And I think they are such a small portion. And in any walk of life, you're going to have bad people, incompetent people, people who, but in this case, they're carrying guns and,
Yeah,
and they've got authority. But all that being said, how's the expression go? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
right.
Okay. And
Yeah,
and, and that's what the whole defund the police thing was. And I do know that a number of cities that did go that way, they
yeah,
reverse course. I mean,
yeah,
hey, when we need a policeman, we don't have any. Are you kidding
yeah.
me? I
Look at
mean, but
Portland, Oregon as an example.
it's such a woke, liberal, knee jerk
Well,
thing.
it kind of goes back to what we started the show with, and that is when people say defund the police, do we actually know? Do they actually know what that means?
It's
It
ludicrous.
and they'd be the first one. I think some were in Minneapolis who, some of
Yes, they were.
these politicians who said defund the police, and then they get they get either they become a victim of crime. Their first reaction or their first response is to call the police,
And
dial 911.
Minneapolis is a very beautiful city, and that place literally was burning for days and days and days. And that was in 2020. And
Right.
I have family and friends up there. I get back there with some degree of regularity, and I'm telling you, there are areas there that they still look like a war zone, and
Yeah.
it's
And we have
it's sad. It's just sad to see.
and it was Tim Walz, wink, wink, who
The guy,
allowed the burning to go on for 4 days before he called in the National Guard. So, uh,
and he
I
was a National Guardsman, for
yeah,
God's
it's
sakes.
insane. I just think we ought to again, if you're relying anybody, left, right, center, whatever, upside down, it doesn't matter to me. If you're relying on the national media for your information, you are as screwed up as can be. There is nothing I can think of value that comes from the national media most of the time. And so, and crime stats, one of them. So realize crime is up in this country 4.1%, and anybody that tells you otherwise is lying to you.
So let's flush this conversation down the
Good one.
toilet and go to our sponsor. And I'm going to tell you what, you're never going to see a movement to defund the plumbers.
No.
Okay. And we have a fine sponsor here by the name of Mr. Rooter. And they have branches all over North America and have been around since 1970. So that's 54 years of taking care of your needs. They're both residential and commercials. Sam, do we still show that picture of that Mr. Rooter truck? Is that up there?
Yep.
I saw that truck coming down the street the other night, coming down 77. And I thought, well, there's my sponsor. How cool. How cool. Um, And what you are going to get from Mr. Reuter is licensed experts, insured plumbers, guaranteed parts and workmanship, courteous uniformed professionals, and convenient appointment times. And they're going to arrive on time. They're going to keep your home clean with mats and shoe covers. They're going to provide you with a price before they start, deliver high quality, durable repairs, and stand behind their workmanship. So the few times you need them, when they're there once, they'll be the people you always use. And when your wife or your husband says, this place is looking dated, it's time to redo this bathroom, they'll remodel your bathroom for you and make it look brand new. And you can reach them at 469 214 5179. That is 469 214 5179. Or you can get them on the internet at mrreuter.com/Waxahachie.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Reuter. He said. We don't have any she's on our show yet. We will. Matter of fact, I wanted to tell you that we will be in the coming weeks actually having guests on our show, and we'll either fit them in here in our palatial studio, right between Jeff and I, or Jeff will take the show and interview them, or I will take the show and interview them and give one of us a break. But we look forward to having some guests on here that you'll be able to ask questions of. You'll be able to call in. Matter of fact, if you look above the very handsome elephant, you'll see our phone number. Jeff will tell you what it is if you're listening.
You can call in and we'll talk to you at 972 268 9441. That is 972 268 9441.
Yeah, but what we're realizing or experiencing with our show is that we get a number of comments. We also, as Jeff said, we get people who watch the show later. We try to find the best time possible for this show, which is not an easy thing to do. And so we did do it at lunch and hope that people will be able to, while they're eating their lunch, be able to listen in and tune in. So we get a decent amount of feedback in other ways, but feel free to call, feel free to write. You can reach either one of us personally at Scott@waxahachiesun.com or Jeff at waxahachiesun.com. But we want to hear from you. And when our guests come on, we're going to have guests that are appealing and doing great things, and that you
Intelligent.
intelligent, that you'll want to hear from. So look forward to that, and we will be sharing that in advance. Our he said segment is a segment where we take a topic and then, without having discussed it prior, because we do our show prep together. But when it comes to he said, we don't, because we want to just see what's up. So the question today, and I really, if you want to weigh in on it, it's a question for you as well. But there's a bridge that's just too far sometimes. There's a bridge
Over troubled waters.
there is, and there's also a bridge that can just get burnt up, exploded. And so there's a line that gets
London
crossed.
Bridge is falling down.
That too. There's a line that gets crossed. There's a red line that can get crossed. So the question is, has either candidate in the 5 or 6 months, well, it hadn't been 5 or 6 months for Kamala, hasn't been that long for her, but in their respective campaigns, has either one of them, in your opinion, crossed the line?
I think they both have in terms of, okay, if you want leadership, you've got to have people who may not even agree with you, but say, well, she is in charge, and this is America, and we try to follow our laws, and if we don't like our laws, we try to change them, and that's what the democratic process allows. And so the divisiveness of both of them is a major factor in making it tough for them to lead in the future.
Yeah, I would agree. The thing about, sometimes when you hear somebody for so long, and you don't stop them and say, I'm not listening to that. It's like a gossiper or a liar or a friend that's constantly just being sarcastic or whatever. If at some point early on in the conversation or relationship, you don't say, you know what, I don't really go for that. So that's a boundary we have here. Let's just be authentic. So if I've got somebody that I'm interacting with and they're inauthentic, then I'm either not going to have a relationship with them, or I'm going to say I don't really go
Hmm.
for that. I'll say that in certain ways. But if I let it happen, and let's just say they lie or they're sarcastic, and I never say time out. Let's kind of calibrate that. They'll just keep doing it, and before long, it'll just be what we expect, right?
There's that tuning out process, and you've seen this happen in your life, and you've seen it in other people's life, where um, the kid tunes out his parent, and then the neighbor, the uncle, somebody tells the kid the same cotton picking thing,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden it's a good idea.
yeah.
Okay, and
Good point.
could it possibly happen that after we elect a president, that people within the losing side talk to their fellow constituents that lost and try to encourage them to see the other side and to at least obey what is happening in the future and let the democratic process continue? Is that
Yeah.
possible?
Well, it is possible. Anything's possible. I think we have to kind of turn our focus to what this country was founded on, where we're going to get there. Those are very good points. I think with Trump, with respect to a bridge too far or a line that's been crossed, is that we have heard him, and obviously I'm a big Trump supporter and will remain. There's nothing you can say or do that's going to make me change my mind. So call me racist, call me pinhead, call me whatever. I'm not changing my mind. Uh, but I will readily admit that Trump has so often uh, embellished, or he's quipped, or he's referred to Biden as, oh, well, how did he refer to Hillary as crooked Hillary, right?
Right.
He calls
And Sleepy Joe.
Sleepy Joe. So we hear that enough, and we don't. If we don't say to ourselves, "I'm not buying that. I'm not putting up with that," then we'll just accept it. So the idea of a bridge too far with respect to Trump, for me, there's really not a bridge too far. Would I prefer him not to call Biden dumb or Kamala stupid or whatever other things he comes up with? Of course, but I also realize that this man's been under attack for 4 years, 8 years, almost lost his life. And there's a point at which you say, give the guy a little bit of license here to say, this is how I'm going to respond to him. So the bridge too far for me with respect to Trump he passed that a long time ago. And now there's a new bridge that he hasn't really crossed yet, in my opinion. With respect to the left, do I think bridges have been burned, crossed? It's gone too far. Absolutely. I think when we, even today, even yesterday, Sunday, when we have to listen to the media, when we have to listen to Kamala Harris say that because Trump had a rally at Madison Square Garden, the same place where the Knicks play all the time, where the Rangers play. Well, I don't know if that's where they play, right?
Yeah, Rangers.
And where there are countless concerts, where there have been political rallies there, Clinton, Obama, a whole bunch of others in the past. When the left takes that and says we're comparing that to 1939, when Hitler had a rally
At
for
that same building.
Nazism, and that's yeah. Well, actually I
Before
learned
before
yesterday it was a
before that,
different building.
well,
It was Madison
it
Square
was
Garden.
square and now it's round.
Yeah, so yeah, it is. It's weird how, I mean, it's right in the middle of Manhattan and it's a round building. Uh, it's a cool place, but I will tell you that to say that what we witnessed, if you watched any of it on Sunday, to compare that to a Nazi rally in 1939 is not only a bridge too far, it's offensive. And you know what? To me, the people saying that ought to be embarrassed. I don't think the people saying that have much self respect or self esteem, because if they're willing to say that, they're a sellout to whatever principles they might have once had. But the idea, Sammy, show that picture. You know, if the rally Sunday was compared to 1939 Nazi rally, you wouldn't. Is it up? Tell me when it's up. You wouldn't see what Sammy has on the screen right now, which is obviously a Jewish person wearing a yarmulke with the name Trump on it. Obviously, a Trump supporter. You wouldn't see Muslim people filling that place up. You wouldn't see other ethnicities. You would see whatever. If Trump is like Hitler in that rally, what we would see is whatever ethnicity, whatever class of people, whatever demographic,
The Aryan race.
we would only see whatever Trump wanted in that rally. Just like the 1939 rally consisted only of people that Hitler wanted in there. And so for the left, anybody, it doesn't matter well, it does matter, but if you could be in the middle and be saying the same thing about a rally like that, calling it a Nazi similar rally is absurd. And you should be called out for it. It's not the same thing. There was a vast group, a vast melting pot of people in Madison Square Garden on Sunday. And if you don't like that, then run a better candidate against Trump. But the truth is, it has nothing to do with Nazi Germany. And Trump is nothing like Hitler that I can think of. And because as I just said, all kinds of people support Trump, particularly now more than ever before. We know that he's increased his support from Hispanics, from the Muslim community, from uh, the minority, the African American community, from all sorts of groups. He has increased his support. So we got to stop. But that is a bridge too far. Um, Moving on from an assassination attempt as though he was just shot in the ear, it's no big deal, and then just move on and not and continue all this animosity and all these name calling and labels. That's a bridge too far. A man almost lost his life. The question I have for those of us on the right, if that were Joe Biden, who had been shot in the ear with the intention of being shot in the face or on the side of the head within in less than an inch, would we say, all right, no more calling Biden uh, Sleepy Joe, no more calling Biden dumb, no more making fun of Biden? None of that. I already believe, despite me not liking Biden, and maybe like you too, Jeff, in your life, but being around people with dementia, that's not their fault. And so we can't make fun of people for something that's not their fault. Now, if he's running around acting a fool when he could not be acting a fool, then he's ripe for whatever we want to say. But to make fun of a man who has dementia is awful.
And I hadn't really thought of it until now, until the way you brought it up. Um, Kind of in Joe's defense, having had people in my life with dementia, they don't really understand that they have dementia.
Yeah.
And his whole thinking he was still capable and wasn't losing it at all is I think consistent with that situation.
I would agree. So
So
the standards are that we got to be careful what we say. Equally important is that we got to know what it is we're saying. If I'm going to call you a whatever name, I need to understand what it is I'm actually calling you, particularly when it gets to names like fascist, dictator, communist, uh, racist, misogynist, all this bull that we hear. It drives me crazy because I think there's a portion of people out there that call other people misogynist, don't even know what misogyny means, or or any other
I was
oddity.
at a resort this weekend and I had the best massage of my life.
Yeah, there you go. And so we got to know what's being said. Chuck says, I agree, but I also add that Kamala Harris was handed the baton without a somewhat democratic process. Am I right with you're spot
Spot on.
on, Chuck. I mean, the idea that we're actually watching a political party put somebody up, vote for somebody, campaign for somebody, sell out for somebody who who in the proper way in 2020 didn't get any votes, dropped out before the races even started in Iowa, and was totally rejected. Totally rejected. Not only that, she called her partner Biden at that time. She called him a racist for the school bus incident,
Yeah.
and so here we are with people calling other people or saying Trump is a threat to democracy, when in fact nothing about democracy was followed with respect to Kamala Harris. It's almost a caricature. It's almost a cartoon. It's almost a joke. But you're spot on, Chuck. I mean, right, spot on. So there you go. A bridge too far is in place, and hopefully, like you said, after this election, after next Tuesday, we can maybe calibrate this country. All right, what time is it, Sammy? It is. That's time for Jeffrey, the poet extraordinaire. What you got for us today?
Well, I tell you what, I always try to do something somewhat timely, and nothing on this content list really matched up. I've written
Well, you need to write a poem
up.
about a bridge too far then.
Well, I tell you what, I've had a little expression in my life. Have you ever just been sitting around and you see something like fall off a table or a bookshelf, and,
You
and,
know, like
you-
eerie kind of
and,
way.
and,
Yeah.
and you go, and I always say it's a random act of gravity. Okay,
Or a ghost.
and it goes. So we were driving home from Sedona, Arizona, down to Phoenix. Beautiful, gorgeous red rocks, spectacular country. And I see this sign on the side of the highway coming around a kind of a steep turn. And you see this any place whenever you're in a mountainous area and there's a bunch of rocks and it says, beware of falling rocks.
Yeah.
Okay. And you look up there and you see all these rocks on the side of the hill. They're just somehow wedged there. And then you'll see a bunch of them in a pile. And they're all just nice and happy in that pile
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
But something happens,
Yeah.
and the gravity's always pulling. And
Something causes it.
the rain comes in and it takes away a little dirt. Next thing you know, the rock
A
falls.
gust of
Okay.
wind. Yeah.
And I thought about this poem that I'd written. And I don't know.
I'll lay it on
You
us.
know, I don't know whether people enjoy my poems or just humor me, but I write them about some strange things, and it's just whatever comes across my mind. And
Yeah.
so when I decided that this would be the poem for this week, I thought, what made me write it? And I couldn't remember what inspired it, but I guess it was
There's the
seeing
interpretive
seeing a
feeling.
random
Yeah.
act of gravity. So it's
Yeah.
called A Random Act of Gravity, and it goes like this. A random act of gravity is something you can't see, but when something falls near thee, it's because of gravity. I see it quite often when something goes kerplunk. Objects fall with no reason in every single season. If you've never heard this phrase in all your born days, no, I didn't make it up. You can look it up. Wonder why something dropped in an involuntary flop? Well, it's about Big G always pulling on you and me. It was discovered by Isaac Newton when an apple hit his head. Luckily, he wasn't dead. His theory arose instead. Thank you,
Good
Sam.
one, Sammy.
Ike had discovered gravity. No, this is not levity. He said the center of this earth holds us firmly on our earth.
Sammy's reading the
Sam's
poem
picking them up.
online. He's reading it.
Yeah. No, he's getting it. It pulls us every day with varying geological might. G keeps you on the ground. It keeps us safe and
Sound.
sound.
Yeah.
So when something just falls down, you wonder why it did. This unexpected calamity is a random act of gravity.
Gravity. Very good.
Thank you very
Yeah, let us know what you think about Jeff's poems. I think Jeff has an excellent, really cool talent of writing poems. And um, one of these days, I'm going to have him do it spontaneously. I'm going to say at the beginning of the show, I'll do the talking, let him have a break. We're going to say sea turtles. In this segment, you write a poem about sea turtles and you can read it later and see how you do.
Well, we started something like that before, and then I decided that I didn't
Yeah.
think I could sustain a whole poem of trying to write poems
Well,
collectively.
we were
But
trying to, yeah, Jeff being the Bob Ross of Waxahachie and poem writing. But to that point, let me just say, a great holiday gift is, and Jeff's done it for me, one of my friends. If you want a great holiday gift for somebody that's really unusual, Jeff will write a poem specific to either the person, event, uh, whatever, something notable in your life, a pet. Jeff will write you a poem, put it in a nice layout and frame it, and you can buy
yeah,
it from him.
yeah.
So again, Jeff at waxahachiesun.com. And but that's a really cool thing. We have our third sponsor to share with you. It's a relatively, well, it is new sponsor. That's Pier 7. Pier 7 Juicy Seafood and Bar on Interstate 35 up in Lancaster. It's right in that area near In-N-Out Burger. Um, so it's really not far at all. But this is an ad they're running in one of our products. Uh, the Pier 7 is a wonderful seafood restaurant with lots of things, and I'm not sure if they have a buffet, but I can tell you that they have great food, fresh seafood, lots of different seafood. I see corn on the cob, potatoes, all kinds of stuff. So you spend $30, you get 12 calamari. You spend $50, you get one order of egg rolls. You spend 100, you get a free order of shrimp fried rice. They have cocktails and fun. So check out Pier 7 on Interstate 35 on the going north. It's on the
East.
east side there by the In-N-Out Burger area. Okay, so Pier 7. Thank you, Pier 7. All right, we know what time it is. How'd you do this morning? Did y'all do it?
Well, of course we do it. We always
Okay,
do it.
I didn't know if you were
Um,
traveling.
I went 6-1. This first
Ooh,
one is a tough one, and I got the bonus on one of them, so I was 6-1, and that's your benchmark.
so this is our this day in history or today in history. We love doing this. We have lots of people who've told us they love playing, so go for it.
Sammy's got the rules up there. They're
Yep.
very simple. You get one for getting it right. You lose one for missing it. You get a bonus point if you hit it on the head. And we've got no particular facts for bonus points. We go from oldest to newest, and we're going to open with this. Sir Walter Raleigh, English courtier, military adventurer, and poet, was executed in London for treason. It's a tough crime, treason.
Who was it?
Sir Walter
Oh,
Raleigh.
yeah.
You know when you used to call up the store?
Yeah.
You have Sir Walter Raleigh in the can. Yeah, let
better
him
let
out.
him out.
Better let him
Yeah,
out.
you don't suffocate. Yeah.
1884.
Oh, 1902.
1618. Your guys are in a hole, but you can work your way out. I
Jeez,
started
did you
that
get
way
that
too.
one?
That's the one I got wrong.
Okay.
Got them all right after that. Here we go. Black Tuesday descended on the New York Stock Exchange. Prices collapsed amid panic selling, and thousands of investors were wiped out as America's Great Depression began.
1929. Exactly.
Exactly. And Sam, you remember that from last week?
I got
We had something that was the beginning of that whole thing.
Yep.
Good job.
So
So you
we
got the
both got a
bonus. Boom. The
nice,
bonus.
Sammy.
Good job. Kids learning. I like it.
Yeah.
You can learn from this, can't you?
That's
You
right.
surely can. A blindfolded Secretary of War, Henry L. Stimson, threw the first number, 158, from a glass bowl in America's first peacetime military draft.
World War One. Was there a note about? Did you say something about World War One?
This is
No.
this is blind. He
Okay.
was blindfolded. You got to figure it out.
1948.
48.
I'm gonna say 1939.
1940.
Ooh, baby.
Okay, now
Yeah.
bear in mind that Pearl Harbor was in December of 41,
Yes.
but war had already broken out in Europe
Mm-hmm.
in the late 30s. And I think, our man, Secretary of War Henry L. Stinson, was saying to himself, we are going to get sucked into this conflict one way or the other. He didn't
Yeah.
know how it was going to happen.
Right.
And we damn sure better be ready.
Yeah.
And so that's it. That was the first
Interesting.
peacetime draft. And I think it's an interesting topic for a further discussion
Yeah.
is what could ever cause us to ever have another draft?
Oh, we don't want to go there.
We don't want to go there, but
Yeah.
we maybe have to
We're
be
gonna
ready.
talk. We are gonna talk about that.
Okay, here we go. Superstorm Sandy slashed ashore in New Jersey and marched slowly inland, devastating coastal communities and causing widespread power outages. The storm and its aftermath were blamed for at least 182 deaths in the U.S.
Sandy. We got a big jump in years here for the Sandy I'm thinking of. 2011.
2012.
Ooh.
And didn't we have something else about Sandy last week? Maybe
We
not.
may have, yeah.
Here we go.
That's a big jump in years.
It is a big jump in years. So Sam has learned part of the trick of this game is that, if you play your cards right, you shouldn't get any wrong from here on in.
Yeah, you
Right.
should. Well, particularly the last one.
But can you get a bonus on anything? Here
Yeah.
we go. China announced plans to abolish its one-child policy, allowing all families to have 2 children for the first time in more than 35 years.
18.
15. And
And
see,
what did you say, Sam? Oh, but you still got a yeah.
the one child family policy that had come in China 35 years ago was they were having such a freaking population explosion
Mm-hmm.
that they said, well, we got to do something about it.
Yeah.
And then they abolished it because they said, you know what? We need more people
Well, I
now
wonder. I don't know. I should know this,
to
but
do
what did
work for our
what did
communist
they
government.
what did they do to those families who either I guess they aborted a child, or what if a baby was born in this dark of night? I mean, what they did?
You research that for the next show.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
that's good. And
I'm telling you what, I'm sure it
yeah,
was stern. You know how that
yeah.
country works. Okay, here we go. All but 10 members of the Houston Texans took a knee during the national anthem, reacting to a remark from team owner Bob McNair to other NFL owners that we can't have the inmates running the prison.
Yeah, I remember that. I want to say 21, but I'm gonna say 20. I think I'm gonna say 21.
That was 2017.
Ooh,
And that was before the Colin Kaepernick
yeah, that's
incident.
what I was trying to
That
think of.
that was just him saying, you know what, these players are getting too high and mighty on
Yeah,
us. You know that's the
yeah.
deal. So what that put you at?
6-1 because of my bonus. Is
6
that
and
the
1.
last one?
Yeah, that's how I did 6.
Yeah, 6-1 with the bonus. I don't know
We
what
got the
Sammy
same
was.
bonus. We got the same wrong. Yeah,
Cool.
cool.
All right, very good. So we love that segment, and we've told that people like it, so we'll keep doing it. Enjoy it. We learn something every
Give
single
the
time.
people what they want.
We've added for the end of our show, we've added a new segment, and we want to invite any of you that are listening that want us to take a look at your meme, a meme that you like. We'll be happy to take a look at it and make it the meme of the day. But today's meme of the day is this. It says, "I was dying. First, I was dying to finish high school and start college. And then I was dying to finish college and start working. And then I was dying to marry and have children. And then I was dying for my children to grow old enough for school so I could return to work. And then I was dying to retire. And now I'm dying. And suddenly I realize I forgot to live." That is by Nicole. I can't say that last name. Z-
Zablocki.
Zablocki.
I knew a
It's
guy
a
named Zablocki.
it's a really
Yeah.
wonderful thing.
Well, you knew it had to be a woman because she talked about going back to work
Yeah,
because
yeah,
she'd
yeah.
stayed home with her
Good point.
kids. You know.
But the idea is, man, I'm all about us just living. The idea of sliding in home base, flying like your pants are on fire to get to home base.
Pete Rose over Ray
Yes,
Fosse.
that's the way I want to live this life, and go down to the last second just living it.
Yeah.
I don't always do it, but that's what I want. So I thought we'd share that with you. If you have a meme of the day, send it to us, and we will be happy to put it on the air and talk about it. All right. So thank you to Cancun's, to Mr. Reuter, to Pier 7. We love our sponsors. Please use them whenever you can. Great show today. Thank you, Jeff. Welcome back from Sedona. And
we're 58 minutes into a 60-minute show, and guess what? We're going to wrap it up just to prove that we don't want to talk just to talk if we don't have anything to talk.
No.
But I'll tell you one thing. Always remember, don't write a check that you can't cash.
Very good.